Okay, we are picking up page 704 in the 11th edition. I had just finished off the other day giving I think it was this class, a brief bit of introduction to John Donne. And mentioned that according to Isaac Walton, his first biographer, Donne wrote this poem or the impetus or source, whatever, behind this poem was Donne was about to take a trip to the continent with his employer, and his wife had a premonition that the child she was bearing would be stillborn. Factually, Donne did go on a trip to the continent, 1611, 1612. His wife was pregnant at the time, and she did deliver a stillborn child. There's also a possibility that the poem might have been written earlier than that, okay? But I'm not going to talk about that because there's an element in the poem that I think makes it pretty conclusively clear. It's after 1610, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. So, it's a valediction, we're told, forbidding mourning. And we talked the other day, a valediction is a saying farewell, it's a saying goodbye. This one is forbidding mourning. Donne wrote 3 valedictions. Valediction forbidding mourning, a valediction forbidding weeping, which is kind of similar to this one, and a valediction, the third one is titled, A Valediction of My Name in the Window, or in a Window. And it's talking about, that third one is talking about scratching his name in a pane of glass. We actually know where that occurred. That is, that poem wasn't entirely fictitious. He did scratch his name in a pane of glass, okay? So this one begins with a simile. The first 2 stanzas are an extended simile. As virtuous men pass mildly away and whisper to their souls to go, while some of their said friends do say, the breath goes now, and some say no. So we begin with this image of what are called virtuous men dying. And the individual or the men are surrounded by their friends and family. They're on their deathbed. And some of those witnessing this event saying, is he gone? Is he still alive? When my mother-in-law died end of last May, we were all in the room, but we were talking, because she was literally hours, and if I remember correctly, heard something, went over, and we weren't sure for several minutes as to whether or not she had passed. Because when someone is that close to dying, their breath gets really shallow, heartbeat gets infrequent, etc. That's what that first stanza is getting at, okay? So, as virtuous men pass, notice we're told, mildly away. They don't die kicking and screaming, all right? We're going to read another poem by Dylan Thomas where the speaker is going to say, and I'm going to use one of the famous phrases from it, do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light, okay? Die fighting to live till your last breath. So let us melt. Let us melt, separate, like virtuous men's souls do from their bodies. And make no noise. No tear floods nor sigh tempests move to a profanation of our joys. What did I do with that blue marker? To tell the laity our love. Okay? There's an Italian poet named Petrarch, and he creates what are called Petrarchan conventions. Okay? He's the first one to write a sonnet. We'll talk about sonnets a little bit later. And Petrarchan conventions become, after Petrarch kind of invents these, become standard ways of talking about love, about generally a man's love for a woman and what happens when she reciprocates, that is, when she turns and smiles at him, or when she turns and frowns at him, or indicates some kind of frustration or anger with him. When he's happy in love, you know, it's a beautiful day, the sun is shining, her eyes are glorious, etc. When he's sad in love, because she's not reciprocated in some way, his sadness produces tears. The tears are so voluminous that they create floods. They destroy crops, they destroy towns, etc. His tears are accompanied by sighing, crying, etc. Those sighs produce winds that are like hurricanes. They destroy things. So you get these emotions that everyone experiences, and they get amped up. They get exaggerated in these conventions. So that's what he's referring to in the tear floods and sigh tempests. He then goes on, "'Twere profanation of our joys to tell the laity our love." There's a religious term there, laity, okay? In whichever branch of the Christian church, in the Christian church, generally there are two kinds of people. There's the laity and the clergy. Clergy, ministers, priests, pastors, deacons, etc., bishops, etc. The laity, everybody else. The clergy are those who have been ordained, they've had hands set upon them, prayers said over them, so that they can conduct the rituals and ceremonies, marriages, baptisms, funerals, all that kind of stuff. Conduct the services, you know, the mass, liturgy, etc. of the church. So profanation of our joys to tell the laity our love, what the speaker is doing is the speaker is saying that we, himself and the woman he is speaking of or to, are like religious initiates. They're the ones ordained into their love. Nobody else is. And he says, if you cry, if you weep, if you moan and such, sigh and such, you will reveal the hidden mysteries of our love to those outside, to the laity, to those who are not initiated into these secrets, okay? And it would do what? He says it would profane our love. What does it mean to profane something? It means to desacralize it, okay? To remove the sacredness or the sanctity of it. He's saying their love is like a holy love, right? New image. So, first image, first stanza, virtuous men dying silently. Second image is of their kind of holy love. Third image, moving of the earth brings harms and fears. Men reckon what it did and meant. But trepidation of the spheres, though greater far, is innocent. Anybody know what happened in the Northeast last week? It's actually in New Jersey. It was felt Philadelphia, Long Island, New York City. They had a 4.5 earthquake, okay? Some really stupid people, members of Congress actually, suggested it had something to do with climate change. Earthquakes have nothing to do with climate change. I'm from California. I know a bit about earthquakes. Moving of the earth is talking about earthquakes. Why? Because even last week, New Yorkers, people from New Jersey, people from the Northeast, they were asking, we don't live in an earthquake state. How the hell does this happen? Well, New Jersey actually is an earthquake state. They know where the faults are. It's just they're not as frequent as in California or Hawaii or Alaska and such, okay? So it brings harms and fears, and men reckon what it did and meant. Happen every time there's a major earthquake. You'll see all kinds of news stories. Why did this happen? Usually it's, if God is good, why does he allow destruction of hundreds of thousands of people? The earthquake in Indonesia in 2009, 2011, 250,000 people died within minutes, okay? But trepidation of the spheres, though greater far, is innocent. In the spheres, what he's talking about is this understanding of the order and arrangement of the universe. It's called the Ptolemaic conception. It's also called the geocentric view. Ptolemaic, named after a Greek philosopher named, mathematician named Ptolemy, 2nd century BC, I believe. Okay? And what Ptolemy suggested is that the Earth, the ball, is at the center of the universe. And right outside the Earth, you've got the moon, okay? But outside there, you have a sphere, like a crystal ball that surrounds the Earth and the moon. Outside that is another one. You have 9 of those, okay? Outside that 9th sphere, so out here and out there and down there and out there, is what's called the Empyrean. That's where God dwells. Aristotle, who didn't quite have this particular understanding of the formation or structure of the universe, he still thought that there was an Empyrean. He thought there were these spheres, because Pythagoras, the Greek geometrician, Pythagorean theorem, he talked about the music of the spheres long before Ptolemy gave us this kind of codified version of it, right? Aristotle said that the thing that is, excuse me, out here in the Empyrean is the primum mobile. That's what he defined as God. God's the first mover. There's nothing behind God, okay? And what God does is God makes this first sphere move. So these balls that are out there, so to speak, they're rotating, okay? They're only rotating one direction. So this one moves this direction, and because this one moves, it makes the one next to it move. And the two of those moving make the one next to it, all the way in to us, okay? This is the source of astrology and the horoscope, because it's in these spheres that the planets and the stars exist. And obviously, if this one moves and it influences this one, it influences this one, then all of these things moving influence what's down here. All right? I'm going to talk about the music in a moment. So, this is the standard view in the Middle Ages and early Renaissance. Beginning in the 16th century, early 1500s, is that right? Might be late 15th century, late 1400s. 3 astronomers, mathematicians in particular, developed these ideas that are not proven until 1610. And each one develops on the other. This guy's name's Tycho Brahe, this is Johannes Kepler, and this is Nicolaus Copernicus, right? Brahe is the first one to come up with this idea that maybe the Earth is revolving around something else, that everything doesn't revolve around us. Kepler refines that. Copernicus is the one who says the Earth revolves around the sun, and the sun is also moving. So the sun's not the center, all right? It's heliocentric in the sense that everything in the solar system revolves around the sun. It's not heliocentric in the sense that the sun is thought to be the center of the universe, right? So you have the heliocentric view and the geocentric view. In 1610, Italian astronomer, mathematician, Galileo Galilei publishes his findings. I don't remember what the title of the work is. Publishes his findings that proves Copernicus is correct. That is, that whole previous understanding of how the universe is structured, done away with. Okay? We still use the language of this every single day. We use it twice a day. What am I talking about? Sunrise and sunset. Sun's not rising, sun's not setting. That's our moving. But it fits our perception, okay? So, moving of the earth brings harms and fears when there's an earthquake, and men wonder what it means. Trepidation of the spheres, trepidation means the movement of these spheres. Notice, though greater far, why? Because these things are exponentially larger than just the earth. Their movement is a whole lot greater than just some little earthquake. Is innocent. Innocent means the movement of these things doesn't have anything to do with what happens on earth. Because of this. It's kind of proof that the poem has to be written after 1610. And by the way, it's hard for us to try to imagine a similar scenario where our understanding of the universe changed like this changed it. Because, I mean, we've been thinking this for the last 500 years, 400 years plus, okay? Only thing that could come close today would be discovery of life, being visited, I mean really visited, not stupid little silver things moving around, but somebody coming and knocking on the door, take me to your leader kind of. That kind of major change is the only kind of thing that would be equal to this kind of change in understanding, which is why the Catholic Church immediately upon Galileo's publishing this arrested him and put him under house arrest for the rest of his life. He was forced to recant, take it back, which he did. And on his deathbed, he recanted I think it was on his deathbed, he recanted his recantation. He said, I'm right. And I think it was within 100 years that the church said, we were wrong, Galileo was correct, okay? Dull sublunary lovers love, whose soulless sense cannot admit absence, because it doth remove those things which elemented it. So Donne is playing upon another idea here. Here's the moon orbiting around the earth. Everything from the orbit of the moon to earth would be sublunary. And what that means is everything there is changeable. It's impermanent. That's why things change all the time down here. Because it was thought, as part of this belief system, everything outside the orbit of the moon, permanent. Comets, meteors, all those are from within the orbit of the moon, it was thought. Okay? So, dull sublunary lovers love, notice, whose soul is sense. The soul of love, the speaker is saying, for dull sublunary lovers are sensory perceptions. What does that mean? What must happen before you can fall in love with someone? Basics, real basic. This is not higher. What has to happen first? Even before that, even before you start dating, what has to happen? Before that, you gotta meet the person, right? You don't fall in love with an idea of a person, because no person's gonna match that idea. So you gotta meet the person, which means there's eyes, there's a face, there's hair, there's body, there's a voice when you start talking. All of those things that we take in how? Through our senses. Hearing, seeing, touching, tasting, smelling, etc. Dull sublunary lovers love, whose soul is sense. The thing that makes up their love are all of those sensory perceptions. You can see where he's going. These kind of lovers cannot admit absence. Why? Let's say I'm in love with a woman. She's in here with me right now, but then goes out to that door and leaves. What happens if I'm a dull sublunary lover? Once she steps out that door, out of sight, out of mind. Why? My sensory perceptions are no longer taking in something from her being here. That's it. Because absence removes those things, face, eyes, hair, body, that elemented, that were the atoms that made up the speaker's love. But we what? We who are not dull sublunary lovers, we, by love so much refined that ourselves know not what it is, enter assured of the mind, careless eyes, lips, and hands to miss. Why don't they care whether or not they are physically present in the same room? Because we're told they are enter assured of the mind. Shakespeare has a poem that we're going to read later on, if we get to it. You'll read it anyways, it'll still show up on the exam. Sonnet 116, let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments, he says. He doesn't say, let me not to the marriage of true hearts. All right? The speaker here says, our love is so much more refined. It's not based on sensory perception. Why? Because I am assured in my mind of her love, and she is assured in her mind of my love. Our two souls, therefore, which are one, why? Marriage, two shall become one. Though I must go, endure not yet a breach, but an airy expansion, like gold to airy thinness beat. So, our two souls, he says, are one, but when I go, when I leave, it doesn't rip them apart. No, they're like what? They're like a golden rubber band. They just stretch apart. Gold is what's called a malleable metal. Steel is not. Steel will break. Gold doesn't break. Gold bends. You can literally pound gold thin enough to use it for windows. You would see through it in a gold kind of tinge, but you can literally make it that thin. Okay? If they be two, that is, if our souls are two and not one, they are two as stiff twin compasses are two. And what he's talking about there are the two legs of a compass that you use to inscribe a circle. So he says, okay, so let's say our souls are separate like that. Thy soul, the fixed foot, so her soul, the blue one, makes no show to move, but doth if the other, my soul, do. What does he mean? If I wanted to, if I had a piece of paper here, and I wanted to draw a circle on it with the black marker, and I did this to make the circle, notice where that tip is. This is the plane. That's not going to make a circle. What do I have to do in order to make the circle? I've got to tip it like that. This one does what now? It leans after this one. The farther away this one goes, the more this one leans. Extrapolate. The farther away I go from you, the more you will lean after me. How so? Because they're connected. And though it, her soul, in the center sit, yet when the other far doth roam, it leans and hearkens after it, and grows erect as the other comes home. Why? Because when you make a circle with a compass, if you do it like this and move that point out, you're going to have a straight line, right? That's going to give you the radius. Draw the circle, come back to that point, bring them back together, and they're back together. The one that has moved ends up at its starting point. Okay? All of these images that Donne has used, these are all called metaphysical conceits. The term gets created, gets made up about 50, 60 years after Donne's death. And what is meant by it is, the way it's defined by a later writer, is you take two wildly dissimilar things and you find one thing that connects them and you draw them together with that. So what is he, notice, equating, comparing in this conceit, this idea, this image? Souls to a compass. All right? Donne has a poem called The Flea, where it's based upon an image of a man sitting next to a woman, talking to her, importuning her to have sex with him. And he says, look at that flea. It just bit you, that is, it sucked some blood from you, and it just bit me, it sucked some blood from me. Now what is inside that flea? There are two bloods mingling, body fluids. He goes, look at that. That flea sucked and didn't even woo, and this is more than we would do. And as the implication in the poem is, the flea gets fatter from their bloods mixing. It's like an image of pregnancy. How's that for it? Metaphysical conceit. A swollen, think of a tick, since they're more prevalent here in the South. A big, fat, swollen tick is like making love. In that same poem, he compares that flea with the marriage bed. Why? Because it's in the marriage bed that those fluids mix. It's in the flea that the fluids mix. It's a foul, disgusting image. He's not using it. It's not meant to be a real kind of seduction poem. It's designed to show how smart and witty he can be, how he can use images to shock. Okay? So, back to the end of this. It leans and hearkens after and grows erect as that comes home. Such wilt thou be to me who must, like the other foot, obliquely, at an angle, run. Notice, doesn't choose to, must. It's his employer that is requiring him to do this, okay? And makes me end where I begun. It's your staying here that will make me come back home, okay? Little side biographical tidbit. I think I mentioned the other day, Donne met his wife when he was employed for Thomas Egerton. She's Egerton's niece. She was 14 when he met her. He was 26. They started their love affair then. They got married 3 years later. She was 17, he was 29. In the next 16 years, she has 12 pregnancies. She dies pretty young. She dies in 1617, okay? When she was like 31 or so. Okay, next poem. That's done. Ode on a Grecian Urn, page 660. Where is it? Back. This is, obviously, an ode. Odes are covered in the section on your book on poetic forms, 775 to 800. I'm not going to read the definition. The book says something like, it is a longish poem using elevated language on a serious or formal topic, okay? This topic is a literal urn. Looks something like this, okay? might have a more of a sway down at the bottom like that. But it's divided into sections. The urn itself is probably black. And it's got this alabaster or marble inlaid on it. Go to the British Museum, get online and look at the British Museum, and you can see tons of these. Go to the British Museum in their ancient Greek room, and there are hundreds of them, okay? And they have even more in their storage that just kind of get rotated out every now and then. I'm almost positive I've seen the urn that Keats is writing about here. I might be confusing it with a painting. There's a painting that is almost virtually exactly what he's showing here. So, it's an ode on a Grecian urn. Notice it's written in 1819. Keats dies in 1821 at the age of 26. He was already, at this point, if I remember correctly, he was already sick. He dies of tuberculosis, okay? Keats and Shelley were close friends. We'll talk about Shelley later when we do his Ode on a West Wind. Thou still and ravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. What leaf-fringed legend haunts about thy shape of deities or mortals or of both, in Tempe or the dales of Arcady? What men or gods are these, what maidens loathe, what mad pursuit, what struggle to escape, what pipes and timbrels, what wild ecstasy? All he's doing there, he's describing images on this, okay? So, you have a sylvan historian. The gloss tells you rustic. The urn is decorated with sylvan means trees. Should have said that first in terms of the gloss. It's got images of trees on it. And in one of the images, we're going to get a later stanza, there's a guy standing under a tree, and he's playing a pipe, a set of what are called panpipes that look like this. Each one of these is a separate pipe, has a reed in it, you blow along them, and from one end to the other, you go from a low to a high note, etc. Okay? Kind of like a harmonica. So, what flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme? That is, there's something on this that he says is even more sweet than this rhyme. What leaf-friend legend, and that's probably talking about up here, okay? Haunts about thy shape of deities or mortals or both. There are images of beings on this, and the speaker's saying, are these gods or are these men and women? Heard, stanza 2, heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Go back to this for a second. I think it's Pythagoras who suggested that the movement of the spheres creates music. You know, this one rubs against that one, and the friction produces a sound. Only it's not like the sound of friction of tires on pavement and such. This music was thought, if we heard it with our human earthly ears, we would immediately die. It would take your soul out of your body and lift you up to utter bliss. However you want to describe that utter bliss. It would enrapture you, okay? Heard melodies are sweet, turn on the radio. Unheard are sweeter. But he's going to make a point, not about these. He's going to make a point about an unheard melody that is being depicted on this vase. Therefore, ye soft pipes, play on. Not to the sensual ear, but more endeared. Notice the sound, rhyme, ear, and pun also. Pipe to the spirit, ditties of no tone. So there's a pipe being played here that doesn't play to these ears. It plays to the spirit's ear, Like we have the phrase, the mind's eye. There's not literally an eye in the mind, but it's understanding, perceiving. Pipe to the spirit ditties of no tone. Fair youth, here's the piper. Beneath the trees thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare. Why not? Because the fair youth playing the pipe on this thing is playing it when? As long as that vase lasts. As long as that vase lasts, the guy blowing on the pipes will always be blowing on the pipes. And that unheard melody will always be played. And the leaves on the trees will always be green. It will always be springtime in this image. Bold lover, first introduction of this individual. Never, never canst thou kiss, though winning near the goal. Yet do not grieve. So who's the bold lover? There's a young man chasing a woman. Now, we're not told if this is an intended rape or if this is she's being coy and playing hard to get. But notice, he'll never kiss her. Why? Because it's a snapshot of time. It's frozen in that moment. She will never fade. Remember, to his coy mistress, now while thy youthful hue sits on thee like a morning dew. Well, what happens when the sun comes up? The dew dissipates. She will always be young and beautiful. Okay? Though thou hast not thy bliss. Why? Because the young youth's bliss intended is to take hold of her. Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. And there's an implication, a negative implication there. This is an idea that goes back hundreds of years in English literature. Women are going to cheat on men. Interesting, today, the idea is entirely the other way around. In the Middle Ages and Renaissance, the idea is your wife, your lover, will never be wholly satisfied with you, so she'll have to find some other man. Here, forever wilt thou, it's talking to the youth, love her, and she will what? She will always be fair. Fair doesn't only mean beautiful. It means honest and loyal and faithful and chaste. Okay? Happy, happy boughs. So now he talks about the trees. They cannot shed your leaves, nor ever bid the spring adieu. And happy melodist, unwearied, the person playing the pipes. Forever piping songs, forever new. Right? If you're frozen in time, then you're what? You're always in the present. Forever new. More happy love, more happy, happy love. That is, the young man's love for her. Why? Forever warm and still to be enjoyed. Forever warm means what will never happen to this young man's love. His passion for her. That's what he means by love. It will never die. He will always have this same passion. You talk to somebody today who's been married a long time. My wife and I will be married 39 years in May. Versus someone who's been married multiple times. Okay? And usually what those who have been married a long time, if they're asked, are you as in love today as you were when you first met her or whatever? The standard answer is yes. The correct answer is yes, but it's not the same. The love then was this bright, shiny, flashing light love. The love now is the cuddly, comfortable, having a favorite chair that you just go and sink in. It's this familiarity. It's this not needing to prove or do anything, okay? Forever warm and still to be enjoyed. Still means two things. Always and not yet. The implication is, at some point it might be, but not yet. For the young lover portrayed on this, it will never be enjoyed, right? Because he's frozen in time. Forever panting, forever young, all breathing human passion far below. That is, breathing human passion is below this guy's. Why? Because what do our passions do? They raise us up to great heights and then they take us down to the rocks. That leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead and a parching tongue. Parching tongue, needing to be slicked, needing to be satisfied. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? A new image, like we're moving down on the vase. And here's another image here. It's an image of sacrifice, okay? To what green altar, O mysterious priest, leadst thou that heifer lowing at the skies, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed? So there's a cow covered with flowers, being led to what? Its slaughter, its sacrifice. What little town by river or seashore, or mountain built with peaceful citadel, is emptied of this folk? Notice he's giving us a whole landscape. So you see this cow being led, and I am 100% sure I have seen a painting of this image. You see a cow being led by a priest, being followed by a bunch of people, and the cow's covered with garlands, and in the background of this landscape, you see, trees and hills, and you see a little city, but you don't see anybody in the city. Why? Because they're all here. And also in this painting that I remember seeing, there is a guy playing pipes, leaning next to a tree, and on the other side, it's like there's a man chasing a woman. It's the exact image that Keats is talking about. In little town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can e'er return. O Attic shape, meaning shape produced in Athens, fair attitude, with breed that is design of marble men and maidens overwrought. So the white material on this is marble that has been carved and sliced thinly and laid on this black vase. With forest branches and the trodden weed, thou silent form dost tease us out of thought as doth eternity. That is, the speaker's saying that by looking at this, I can look at it and I can read these images, so to speak, but at some point, the brain stops. Not because he can't figure it out anymore. He's saying, this makes me think of things that I can't fully comprehend, like eternity does. Try to think about eternity. What does eternity literally mean? It doesn't mean timeless. It means outside of time. We can't think of that. For what basic reason? We all exist in time. We can't imagine what being outside time entails. Cold pastoral. The entire image on this is a pastoral image. It is entirely of a country scene, not town. Notice the town is in the background. It's with woods and trees and flowers, but it's cold. Why? It's dead. This isn't going to bring you any real joy in life. If it's a cold, hard winter, you're not going to curl up with this vase to make you warm like you would with a human being. When old age shall this generation waste. This generation means Keats' generation in 1819. So he's, at this point, 24. I don't know what you consider to be old age. I would say I'm old. By the time he's 60, 34 years from that, so in the early 1860s, He's saying, in the 1860s, thou shalt remain. As long as this vase isn't destroyed somehow, he says, you will remain in midst of other woe. Well, you could go 100 years after the writing of this, and what has Britain just seen the conclusion of? And the United States and the rest of the world, World War I. A war unlike any other war, such that it was called two things: the greatest war, and only later, World War I. Okay? You shall remain in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man, to whom thou sayest. So this vase, he says, is saying this to all of us. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. One of the most famous passages in all of English literature. And no one knows with 100% certainty what exactly Keats meant. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know. That's all you need to know. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. Does that solve any of your problems? Not really. So what does he mean? Whoosh, above my pay grade. Okay? That's an ode. Notice, high elevated language, formal serious topic. Okay? Like, what's our purpose? Next one. Lost my place. Valediction, Grecian urn. Acquainted with the Night, page 711. By Robert Frost, American poet laureate for the United States. He read a poem at JFK's inauguration. He was JFK's favorite poet. Acquainted with the Night is in the section on symbol, allegory, and irony. Why? Because it's full of symbols. And you can't read it without understanding or attempting to understand the symbols. What's it mean to be acquainted with the night? Acquainted, like you've gotten to know the night, okay? I have been one acquainted with the night. Notice the verb tense. I have been acquainted. What does that mean? Notice it's not I was acquainted. That's simple past tense. It happened in the past. It's no longer happening. It's not I had been, which is another form of the past. It began in the past. It continued for a time and then stopped, but still in the past. This is I have been acquainted. It started in the past and it's continuing to now. So I am still acquainted with the night. I've walked out in rain and back in rain. I've outwalked the furthest city light. So what's the big deal about walking out in rain and coming back in the rain? Is he talking about, I went out the front door, it was raining, I came back in? No. I walked out the front door, it was raining, I kept walking. I came back and it was still raining. I've outwalked the furthest city light. We don't know how large the city is. But if it were like from here in Murfreesboro and you go down Greenland, it would mean going past Rutherford and past the last street light. In other words, what's the speaker saying? A long distance at night. I have looked down the saddest city lane during the walking. I've passed by the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes, unwilling to explain. Who's the watchman on his beat? Cop. This is back when cops walked the beat, okay? He says, I've seen the watchman and I looked at the ground. Why? Unwilling to explain. Unwilling to explain what? Imagine you don't live there and you're walking in Belmead at 2 in the morning around these $3, $5, $10 million homes where you don't live. What's going to happen? I can almost guarantee you, anybody in this room is going to get stopped. And I hate to say it, but I can guarantee you three are going to get stopped before I am. I mean, it's just reality, okay? But I'm still going to get stopped. Why? Because a good cop is going to say, what are you doing here at 3 in the morning? Walking down the street where all these $5-10 million homes are, okay? I don't want to explain. What doesn't he want to explain? Why he's walking. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street. Pause, next stanza, but not to call me back or say goodbye. Notice, whose feet are stopped? His. Why is he stopped? He hears the cry, an interrupted cry, which comes over houses from another street. And why does he stop? Because the implication is he's hoping the cry is to call me back. Ted, come back. Or to say goodbye. Because goodbye implies what? Goodbye implies I'll see you again. Come back implies I want you to come back now. The indication is this person has not left happily. And further still, at an unearthly height, one luminary clock against the sky proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. I have been one acquainted with the night. What's the luminary clock? The moon. Why does the moon proclaim the time is neither wrong nor right? What word do we get from the Latin word for moon? Latin word for moon, luna. Lunatic, lunacy. What do lunatics sometimes do? They take their lives. This poem is often read as about someone who is contemplating suicide, about someone who is suffering depression. And they go outside and do this walking. And being acquainted with the night is being acquainted with the darkness. Read anybody who's written about suffering from severe despair, and they'll talk about it as like this dark monster, like a shadow encroaching, getting ready to swallow them up. And the moon says, it's neither wrong nor right. Okay? We'll stop there. We'll pick up with My Last Duchess on Monday. We're just going to get through as many of these as we can. I'm going to put up, I'm going to put up a quiz that's going to cover probably everything on the syllabus from the beginning part about poetry to what's on the syllabus through, I'll say through the 8th. And the quiz is going to be asking, define some of the literary terms kind of stuff that we went over on the video lectures, and also titles and authors. Give you a title, name the author kind of a thing, okay? That'll be included in the description, and in the email that I send out about it, I'll indicate that. All right, so anything through the 8th can be on the first quiz. And I'll put that up today. It'll be due, I don't know, Monday or so. All right, have a good day.